who wins our awards? We're about to find out with Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. Let's start with the Manager of the Year then. And the reveal, Jamie goes with Eddie Howe and Gary goes with Pep Guardiola. Well, we've just seen Newcastle clinch a place in the Champions League, but you picked it before then. Why Eddie?
Because, I mean, it was either Eddie Howe or Pep Guardiola, because I think we all feel Pep will go on and probably win the treble. And how can you go against him if he does that? The only reason I went for Eddie Howe was because I feel like Man City have been in a position to almost win a treble most years. You know, they sort of get to March in April. Obviously, it's really difficult to do, and maybe they just fault it in something. Whereas I just can't believe from what happened last season to this season with Newcastle in terms of where they were when Eddie Howe came in and where they are now, Champions League football. So I actually felt there was more chance of Man City doing a treble, if you like, than Newcastle being in the Champions League this season. So that's why I've gone for Eddie Howe.
How tough was it for you?
Yeah, it was, because I think that Eddie Howe, De Zerbi, Eric Ten Hag, Mikel Arteta. I had Mikel Arteta at one point, I would have said a couple of weeks ago, because I think their jump...
A couple of hours ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, their jump. Gary O'Neill, Bournemouth, unbelievable job there to do what he did. Roy Hodgson coming in at Crystal Palace. So many managers have exceeded what we thought that they would do. But then there are only 3 teams in the history of English football that have got to a Champions League final, a FA Cup final and won a Premier League. Forget the fact that they might not win it yet, Manchester City. We know that Liverpool in '77 was stopped. City may go on and win it, probably will go on and win it, but the fact that he's got to those finals of those competitions, I think, just meant that you've got to recognise that, because it's quite a unique event.
Do Manchester City also take Player of the Year? Both agree. Erling Haaland. Has he changed the dial, Gary?
Yeah, I said it earlier on the season, we've all said it. It's the first time that I think the Premier League has signed a player that we think is going to go on to be the best in the world or is already at that level. Usually they go to Real Madrid, they go to Barcelona. In the last few years, they've gone to Paris Saint-Germain. They don't normally come to the Premier League. We have grown players that have gone on to become the best player in the world, like, say, for instance, Cristiano Ronaldo, but he came as a young kid and they've developed here and gone on to become that. I felt like this player was a phenomenon when he came. We knew he was going to be special, and what he's done this season is out of this world.
It's like Messi, Ronaldo, isn't it, in terms of that goal a game? And
52 in 50.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, before Haaland, Man City had maybe the best striker in the Premier League history in terms of like an out-and-out goal scorer, Aguero. I think his minutes per goal were maybe at top of the list anyway. So how does Haaland score that many more goals than Aguero when it's in, you know, it's a similar sort of team, same managers? That just shows he's an absolute freak. He's a special player, and I think these records are going to continue to be broken.
He is the Football Writers' Player of the Year. He'll get his award on Thursday. He might well be the PFA Player and Young Player of the Year. We've decided that he's not allowed to win both categories, just to keep it a bit more interesting. Give others a chance as well. So who does get the Young Player vote? Jamie's gone for Bukayo Saka. Gary's gone for Martin Odegaard. So we set up to 24, same as the PFA. Bukayo Saka.
I love him. Yeah, I think he's been fantastic. I do think Odegaard has been Arsenal's best player. I mean, I just didn't pick Odegaard. I thought he was too old. You know, so
not read the rules.
Yeah, not read the rules again. But it just, to me, 24 does seem too old to be the young player. But no, I've gone for Saka. I mean, Odegaard, for me, that's not a young player, 24.
We complain about it every year, the PFA rules on young player, because it is still the 24.
He's one of Arsenal's older players.
I know. I mean, look, for me, I was surprised and shocked at the start of the season when I found out that Odegaard was captain of Arsenal. I was like, where's that come from? I agree with Jamie. I think he's been Arsenal's best player. Even in this last very difficult period, I think Odegaard has been outstanding. He really has. His quality on the ball, the way in which he plays. I think he's a player that, you know, would fit into Manchester City's team and just go in there with real ease. I love Saka. I mean, I think Saka plays football like we'd all want to play as a kid. He just looks like he enjoys everything that he does, and I love him to bits. But I think Odegaard's been an outstanding player, the outstanding player for Arsenal this year, and he's the best young player.
I think I'm right in saying that Southampton, the only side with a younger average age. There's lots for Arsenal fans to be excited about moving forward, and next season as well, potentially. Could be some signings on the way. Who's done well with signings this season? Let's have a look at the next category, which is the best signing. Jamie has gone for Manuel Akanji. I think you might have changed your mind, didn't you?
Old chestnut.
Harry's gone for Casemiro.
Old chestnut.
No, I was debating over 2 players today. Obviously we couldn't pick Haaland because we picked him for the best player. So we went for I went for Akanji or Morgan Gibbs White. Actually at the last minute I wasn't quite sure. So It looks like I'm going to Akanji. Can I do a live change?
Let's do a live change.
I'll do a live change. Listen, I think Akanji's been brilliant because he wasn't a massive amount of money. I thought he'd just be a squad player. He's made himself a mainstay. He's played right back, centre back and left back. But I think the fact he's playing for Man City, and then the other player I was thinking about was Morgan Gibbs-White, who is, I wouldn't say single-handedly kept Nottingham Forest in the league, but every time I watch him,
Big price tag, was he justified?
A big price tag, so a lot of eyes on him, and I think he's justified that. And I think he must be really close to the England squad. I really do believe he should be in the next England squad. I'm going to go for Morgan Gibbs-White then.
That gets announced this week. Might well find himself in there. Casemiro.
Yeah, I couldn't pick Haaland, which obviously is the signing of the season. He's had the biggest impact, I think, on his team. I couldn't think of a player that had as big an impact on their team singularly. And I look at Manchester United's season. Obviously, I think they're going to finish in the top 4 if they finish the job this week. They've won the Carabao Cup and they're in the FA Cup final. I genuinely don't think they'd be anywhere near top 4 or doing what they're doing in those competitions if it wasn't for Casemiro. I think the impact he's had on that team is like he makes them 20-30% better. So
Can he continue to do that, do you think?
No, I think moving forward, this is a signing for now, as in this season. I'm talking about, I had doubts about him in terms of the 5-year deal and the expense of it. I've still got those doubts. I should mention that. But in terms of when he's not playing and when he's playing, the jump in Manchester United's quality and performance is enormous. And I don't think there's any signing that has had a bigger impact on a team as he has, because Manchester United, none of us had them in the top 4 after that first few weeks. Who'd have thought they'd be in 2 cup competitions and in the top 4? That is an unbelievable season. I think he's a big part of that. He's brought experience into the dressing room, and I think that he's done a good job.
Sorry, I thought you were about to contribute. You normally do when you draw a breath like that. It normally means something. Biggest surprise, and we left this open-ended in terms of criteria. I want to see what they came up with for their biggest surprise.
Are we signings updated as well?
Yeah.
Morgan Gibbs-White?
Here comes the apology, the retreat down the road.
All right, yes, let's start with that then. Lisandro Martinez is too small to play in English football. He's too small to play in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's not about Lisandro Martinez. That's about any centre-back. Any centre-back coming to the Premier League who is well under 6 foot, you think he's going to have a problem. But he hasn't, and every player has weaknesses, whatever that may be, whether it's physically, technically. And the best players hide the weaknesses. We've all got them. No one's a perfect player. And I just looked at that and I thought, how can you overcome that in the Premier League? I mean, I wasn't the tallest centre-back, and I used to go into games worried that I'm going to get found out or I'm going to get sort of bullied in the air. And at times you lose big challenges, you lose goals. And I thought he's probably 3 or 4 inches smaller than me. But I think when you're talking about the role of Casemiro, and he's not in the Manchester United team, I think it's a massive drop-off when Martinez is not in the Manchester United team defensively, but also his ability on the ball and playing out from the back. And he's a warrior, he's a leader. And when you think of like that spine of the team, certainly him and Casemiro, 2 new signings, I think they've made a huge difference. So apologies, Lisandro and all Man United fans, if you can please stop tweeting me about Lisandro Martinez now that we go down very well.
A little bit of humble pie for you.
Yeah,
there you go,
yeah.
Jamie. Well done. As I said, we left it open and Gary went for Everton's big win, which I suppose is still the result which is keeping them out to the bottom 3.
Yeah, I mean, look, Everton scrambling a 1-0 win, getting a draw, yeah, no problem. Seeing them go to Brighton and absolutely rip them to shreds shocked the living daylights out of me. I didn't think they were capable of a performance like that. And I don't know where it came from. Obviously, Brighton had just beaten Manchester United. And that victory is more than likely, according to sort of the Opta predictor, going to keep them in the league. So for me, that was the biggest shock of the season. They were in big trouble, Everton.
But you also had Gary O'Neill among your candidates for Manager of the Year, and who knows what Bournemouth can produce on the final day. Favourite game then? Jamie, kick us off on this. I wonder what...
Oh, yeah.
What was it about Liverpool beating Manchester United 7-0 that you enjoyed?
You know what? I don't even think it was the game. I think it was the selfie I took in the commentary box, me and him. But listen, it's been a poor season for Liverpool, you can't deny that. But that game will still be getting talked about in 10, 20 years' time. There's no doubt about it. I mean, to beat your rival 7-0, I mean, it's laughable, isn't it? I mean, 7-0, I mean, what is going on? And they didn't even play that well.
I think Graham Souness is still chuckling about it. That was one of his favourite days, I think, as a pundit. What was yours then, Gary? Let's have a look.
Yeah, I couldn't get past the fact...
World Cup final.
We've had a very unique season, haven't we, where the World Cup final's been sandwiched in between, obviously, the Premier League halves. And the World Cup final was just... Look, it was absolutely spectacular. Probably the greatest game of football that I've ever seen live that I've not played in. You know, you say, what's the greatest game you've ever seen? It was absolutely unbelievable, that game. Argentina, France.
You remember it, do you?
Yeah. It feels like about 6 years ago. Earlier on tonight, I remember I actually recalled an interview that we did with Maddison. I said it was last season. It was actually earlier on this season.
Yeah.
It feels like this season's taken about 10 years.
Ronaldo ignored us this season.
Dead
I thought it was last season he ignored us.